Essentially, the European race is composed of three tribes. It was created in the last 7,000 years. The first tribe is the indigenous European hunter-gatherers. The second tribe is the Neolithic Anatolian farmers. And the third is the Indo-European Pastorians. Essentially, the modern European race, or the Caucasian race, is a mixture, is a hybrid of those three tribes. We will get into where the term Caucasian originated and other things similar. But first, let's talk about some of the genes which were observed from the early European migrants. By comparing the ancient European genomes with those of recent ones from the 1000 Genome Project, population geneticist Ian Matheson, a postdoc in the Harvard University Lab of Population Geneticists, and David Reich found 5 genes associated with changes in diet and skin pigmentation that underwent strong natural selection. First, the scientists confirmed an earlier report that the hunter-gatherers in Europe, the first tribe, the indigenous hunter-gatherers, they were not able to digest sugars in milk. The first farmers could not digest milk. The farmers who came from the Near East about 7,800 years ago, and the Yemeni Pastorians, the second tribe which helped create the European race, lacked the version of the LCT gene that allows adults to digest sugars in milk. It wasn't until about 4,300 years ago that the lactose tolerance swept through Europe. When it comes to skin color, the team found a patchwork of evolution in different places, and 3 separate genes that produce light skin, telling a complex story for how European skin evolved to be much lighter during the past 8,000 years. The modern humans who came out of Africa to originally settle Europe about 40,000 years ago are presumed to have had dark skin, which is advantageous in sunny latitudes. And the new data confirms that about 8,500 years ago, early hunter-gatherers in Spain, Luxembourg, and Hungary also had darker skin. They lack versions of the genes SLC24A5 and SLC45A2 that led to depigmentation and therefore pale skin in Europeans today. The first farmers from the Near East arrived in Europe. They carried both genes for light skin. As they interbred with the indigenous hunter-gatherers, their light skin gene swept through Europe. The other gene variant, SLC45A2, was at low levels until about 5,800 years ago, when it swept to high frequency. The likely explanation for the pigmentation genes is to maximize vitamin D synthesis. People living in northern latitudes often don't get enough UV rays from the sun is what it's referring to synthesize vitamin D in their skin, so natural selection has favored the genetic solutions to that problem, evolving pale skin that absorbs UV more efficiently, or favoring lactose tolerance to be able to digest the sugars and vitamin D naturally found in milk. Despite 99.9% of species dying that have ever walked the earth, when I'm talking about species, I'm talking about Neanderthals, dinosaurs, and bacteria species, all of them would die, 99.9%. The reason humans have been able to sustain life still to this day, why you and me are still on this planet, is because of adaptation. Vitamin D is vital for your health. You need it to regulate sleep. Vitamin D helps the body absorb calcium, and it helps build your bones. There is also a new study, which I have referred to on this channel, that vitamin D can help fight COVID. It's called vitamin D hydroxyl, which is an active form of vitamin D. Another story for another day. You also need melatonin, which helps regulate your sleep. If these Europeans did not develop ways to absorb vitamin D in milk and a lighter pigmentation to adapt to the environment so they could get sunlight, which was scarce, then they would have become extinct, just like the dinosaurs. Either you conquer your environment, like humans have done, or your environment conquers you, like the meteors that killed the dinosaurs. I personally have a very light pigmentation. I have really pale skin. I assume that my ancestors were from a region that had scarce sunlight. Due to that fact, my ancestors had to adapt to be able to gain vitamin D, melatonin, and other nutrients. When you hear the term Caucasian, a lot of people don't even know what that means. I didn't know what that meant until today as I did my research for this video. Caucasian was a racial category first introduced in the 1780s by members of the Göttingen School of History. It had originally referred to the native inhabitants of the Caucasus region. Originally referred to that region. The Caucasus region lies between the Black Sea west and the Caspian Sea east, and occupied by Russia, Georgia, and Armenia. The mountains rise up across wide isthmus, separating the Black Sea and Caspian Sea in the region where Europe and Asia converge. The name Caucasus is a Latinized form of Caucasus, which the ancient Greek geographers and historians used. What about the name Europe? The name Europe comes from the Latin Europa, which derives from the Greek Eupawith. In Greek mythology, Europe was the beautiful daughter of a Phoenician king named Phoenix. When you really look into the origins of names and terms that are thrown around so often, it's really interesting. You hear the term Caucasian thrown around a lot, but most people don't even know what the Caucasus is. I'm a pretty well-read individual, but I didn't even know what it meant until today. That's why before you make a term, you should probably read into it, just to be more concise.